Hi guys, Allison here, the Bored Housewife. I am so glad you're back with me again this week. Thank you to everyone that I've been hearing from. I love your comments. I love your suggestions. This week's episode was actually suggested to me by a friend. Um, so I'm just having a really great time doing these, and I just want to reiterate if you guys are liking what you're hearing, if you're enjoying the new topics. Please like, please comment, please share, subscribe, all of the things. I don't know if you guys can hear it. I don't think it's probably loud enough, but it's almost 8:30, and my crazy neighbors are mowing their lawn right now. So it's like, you think you'd be good in the evening to shoot this without any disruptions, but not in my area, I guess. Anyways, so last week I said that I would talk about it this week, which is creating boundaries. And when I mentioned that, I didn't have a full scope of really what boundaries were. And so when I was looking things up this week and, trying to build the episode, I realized that boundaries aren't actually about the person we're trying to set boundaries with. Boundaries are actually about ourselves. And so obviously I'll get into that in a minute, but I think a lot of times we feel like, oh, I have to say this thing to this person and, so they'll respect me. But I think it's really more about, that's just about, not wanting to have awkward conversations or moments or, unpleasant things. For some people like myself, I have a really hard time with boundaries. So I need to be reminded of all of this as well. Setting boundaries, I guess, more so. That sometimes it's just hard to say no. And it's just, you get peer pressured or whatever, pressured into doing stuff sometimes. So, but as I was really thinking of it and looking at a bigger picture of what boundaries in a philosophical way actually mean, I feel like it's actually more about setting the boundaries with ourselves. And so I'm about to get into all of that here in just a minute. Lady Eccentric is back from her vacation, so she's going to share with us the cocktail of the hour and also a little story to go along with it. So this week I have an orange cocktail. I'm like, what am I thinking of? Orange martini. Oh my gosh. Anyways, I used the orange gin from last week's drink, and I put just a splash of orange juice. And Lady Eccentric's gonna get into that. So before I get too far ahead of myself, cheers, guys. Let's have some fun. Well, hello, my sweets. Lady Eccentric is back for another week to help with the cocktail tutorial. And, as Allison explained, I had a much needed holiday in the sun down in the Caribbean. Me and an old girlfriend, we just needed to get out of town and do something crazy. So, I'll get into that in a minute, but first things first is the cocktail of the hour. So this week, Allison has made us an orange martini cocktail. Very, very simple. It's very refreshing, and I have to say, I wish I had one of these little numbers when I was down, sitting by the pool, checking out the little cute patooties on the pool boys, you know what I mean? Anyways, so in this cocktail, we have the orange gin that she used previously. That brand was Tanqueray. I'm not sure if anybody else makes any other flavors, but it's very delicious. So you have about 3 shots of orange gin in this number, okay? Very boozy. And then half a shot of dry vermouth. The dry vermouth gives it that martini taste, and just makes it a little bit more of a slow sipper, so you don't just chug it back. And then she put in a little tiny splash of orange juice, to give it a little bit more of an orangey flavor, and to not make it so strong, because it's a very, very boozy beverage. So anyways, it's the orange martini. I guess she ate her garnish, so I don't have a garnish for you, and I apologize. Allison apologizes as well, but sometimes we eat things and we forget what we're doing, right? So yeah, cheers, guys. Let me get into my little story hour for you. Ooh. Okay. Let's get this up here so you can hear me nice and good. So me and a girlfriend, Lydia, we wanted to go down into the Caribbean. We went down to Aruba and, just needed to get a little sun on our skin. We do sit under the umbrellas because, you don't look this good for 100 years for nothing, getting in those tanning beds and out in the sun all the time. That's how you get your skin looking old. So, but it's nice to be in the warmth and just have, some of the sceneries. But me and Lydia, we go way back, right? And I love the dear. She's amazing, and she's very nice and sweet girl. But sometimes she just gets on my damn nerves. And it's like every time we plan a trip like this, we don't see each other for like another 5 years. Because, we get on each other's nerves a little bit. Like, I say something Lydia doesn't like. Lydia says something that I don't like. And we just start picking and getting at each other. So we were like about 3 days into the trip. I was trying to hit it up with this very cute pool boy, and Lydia kept trying to take my thunder, and I was getting really upset with her. So I called Allison because I was like, Allison, you gotta help me out. I don't know what to do about this. We're supposed to go on a catamaran later today, and I might just kick Lydia off the boat. Like, I don't know. She might just get lost at sea. So Allison talks me down, Don't commit murder. Don't kill your best friend, who she is. You knew this going on the trip, lady eccentric. So, that was a nice reminder. But, she's talking about the boundaries and stuff today. And that's the thing. Lydia and I, we've just never created boundaries with each other. So it's really hard after years and years and years and decades, of friendship. Like, how do you do that? Where do you start? And it's a very awkward conversation to have. So anyways, we tried to just spend a little time apart. One day, I went down to the pool. She went down to the beach. But we were still going at it with each other. So finally, I just realized, from what Allison was telling me, that I can't control Lydia. I can't control what she does. All I can do is control myself. And, I'm a very emotional person. And so it's really hard to take a step back and, look at the situation and assess it. Is it really that big of a deal, And so I just had a few cocktails, and I just tried to meditate and get Lydia's annoying fucking voice. Lydia's voice out of my head because, I just had about enough of her. So, long story short, I didn't kick Lydia off the boat. Allison's advice was very good. Lydia and I are going to meet next week and have some conversations. And, I brought up this boundaries thing to her, and she seemed interested in it as well. Because, we both want to save the friendship. We both really enjoy each other, and we've been friends for so long, and so it's just worth it for us. So we're going to work on that, and we're going to work on ourselves. We're going to work on ourselves to, not care so much about the other people and what they're doing, but just worrying about what we're doing and trying to, control our emotions and our reactions to things. So we'll see how that goes. Lady eccentric doesn't like to, let things go very often. But I'm trying to be a better person, and Allison's really helping me with that. So thank you for listening to my story. Lydia, dear, if you hear this, I love you. Okay, we're going to talk soon. But now I'm going to throw it back over to Allison, and I hope you guys have a great time. Enjoy your orange martini, and we'll see you next week. Cheers, my sweets. Thank you, Lady Eccentric. We're really glad to have you back.
I'm so happy to be back.
All right. Okay, so like I was saying before, I don't think boundaries are so much of like what we say to other people. So, if your boss is calling you too often past working hours, having that conversation with your boss and saying, like, hey, after 8 o'clock, I'm off the clock. Like, you need to respect that I have a home life and all of that. Like, it's not so much that, which I think it is, that's part of it, right? Is just expressing ourselves. Like, telling somebody that, hey, this is what I need from you in this moment. But on a philosophical field or, space, that's much different because it's not just about like, okay, so you've asked somebody to respect something of yours, right? You've asked someone to like respect your time or respect whatever it is that you have going on. But then what do you do after that? What do you do if that person still crosses the line? What do you do if they, aren't respecting what you've asked them to respect? Like, do you just cut them out of your life? Like in the case of someone being your boss, you're not just necessarily going to quit your job. So that's where it's like, I think on a higher level, I think it's totally appropriate to have these like, calm discussions with people, not in the heat of the moment. Because I think anytime you have a conversation in the heat of the moment, it can go fast in the wrong direction that you don't want it to go in. So it's like, but pretending that we've had those conversations with the people or whatever scenario is, that you needed to have a conversation in, what do you do after that? So this first passage I'm going to read here, I think sets up a lot of what we're going to talk about today. So it says, and again, I'm working out of The Art of Living. This is on page 63. So it says, once you have deliberated and determined that a course of action is wise, never discredit your judgment. Stand squarely behind your decision. Chances are there may indeed be people who misunderstand your intentions and who may even condemn you. But if, according to your best judgment, you are acting rightly, you have nothing to fear. Take a stand. Don't be cravingly non-committal. So I think this is probably one of the most important aspects of setting boundaries. And I think this is where I probably struggle a lot with it. And what that's saying is, so you've decided that you've made this decision, okay? We'll just take the boss example again, to not make it too personal or anything. So let's say you get off work at 6 o'clock, okay? And your boss continues to call you 6:30, 6:45, sometimes even later into the evening, and you're trying to have time with your family, right? You feel rightly that, no, I'm not working anymore. I need to have this time, to just relax after work, to be with my family, to just recharge for the next day, right? So if you go to your boss and you're firm about it and you're telling that person that, hey, I can't take your phone calls after 6 o'clock anymore because that's my time that I need to spend with my family. I give you X amount of hours during the day. That's what I get paid to do. If the job requires something more, then we need to have a conversation about that, right? So if you go into your job and you have this really strong stance and you feel so right about what you're doing, more than likely your boss is probably going to respect you. And if your boss doesn't respect you, then that's a whole other conversation you guys are going to have and, maybe talk about what actually you were hired to do and all those sorts of things. If your boss continues to break that, then that's the time where maybe you just stop answering your phone because you've given your boss what you need and you've explained to them what you need and you feel right in that. So if they continue to try to break that, at that point it's on them. So again, if they're upset that you're not answering their phone calls or whatever at a certain time, you just go back to that conversation and you explain to them, if this job requires something more, then we need to have a conversation about that. So, however, on the flip side, if you go to your boss and you feel really insecure about saying this, you're nervous you're going to get fired, you don't know how your boss is going to take it, and you seem wishy-washy about like, hey, I really like to spend time with my family in the evenings, and like, the phone calls, they just, it's a little much, and you don't sound confident, you don't sound super assured in your delivery to your boss. More than likely your boss is going to take advantage of that, right? Your boss is going to be like, well, she obviously doesn't think that, it's that big of a deal. I mean, I hear words coming out of her mouth, but it's like, you're not standing firmly in your beliefs. So you're more than likely going to have people that are going to still try to cross the line with you in there. So I think it's like really important that when you start from the beginning of like, this is what I need, to feel so assured in what it is that you're doing. And at that point, it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks, because you know what's right for you, and you can't control how that person is going to act or how they're going to take it. All you can do is know that this is what's best for me in this moment. So if you're having issues with like a friend or a family member or whatever, and you've explained to them like, hey, it really bothers me when you don't give me my space or whatever it is, at that point, if they're still not respecting that, there's nothing that you can do. You just have to, you can't control them. You can only control yourself. So, from there, it's just like, well, I feel reassured in what I'm doing. If they don't get it, then that's their problem. And so that's going to bring me into my next point. All right, so the next point that I'm going to make, a lot of philosophy is about, coming to a certain enlightenment level, whether it's in this book, they're calling it serenity. They also call it freedom. Just that peacefulness that we can feel in life. A lot of philosophy is about searching for that thing and about, continually to balance our lives and trying to do that. So bringing that back to boundaries, when we have certain serenities in our life or when we have serenity in our life and we're able to create boundaries and stick to them, that's only going to help you continue to feel good. And when you let things go about things that you can't control, that's going to continue to help you feel more harmonized and more sort of level, So this next passage says, the surest sign of the higher life is serenity. Moral progress results in freedom from inner turmoil. You can stop fretting about this and that. So, dwelling on things that are out of your control, like, isn't going to help you reach anything. It's not going to make you a better person because you're worried about whatever. And then it says, say to yourself, coping calmly with this inconvenience is the price I pay for my inner serenity. For freedom of perturbation, I can't say the whole word, sorry. From freedom of being annoyed, you don't get something for nothing. So how this relates to what I was saying is that you have this person that you've set this boundary with, and here comes the next part, right? If they respect your boundary, then yay, you don't have to deal with any of it, right? But if you're still having issues with them respecting, it's time to just stop giving them any sort of power. So, again, we'll take the boss example. If your boss still is calling you after hours, and you continue to have conversations, and the boss is like, oh, yeah, like, oh, sorry, I thought I'd just call you today, like, whatever. Instead of getting mad at your boss, instead of, like, being like, oh, my God, this fucking prick won't, fucking Because that's where we all want to go, right? Like, I can't believe this asshole has no respect for my time outside the office. I'm just a slave to the job, you know. We all have felt those things, right? um, you know, your boss is just going to do as much as your boss can get out of you. I mean, if that's the kind of person that you're working for. So instead of being like mad at them, just pretty much accept that that's who that person is. And again, realize that you don't have control over them. All you do is have control of yourself. So if you control how you feel and how you react, just don't answer your phone. Or if you answer your phone, I mean, I really wouldn't answer your phone in that scenario, because then your boss is going to be like, hey, you know, but if it's important, like they send you a text, like call ASAP, you know. Okay, so you call them back, like calmly, you know, tell them like, hey, we've had a conversation, like what's going on? It must be important, right? And then from there, if your boss is like, oh yeah, we have an emergency, like we need you to do this or that, then you assess. And then you say, you know, this really can be handled tomorrow, don't you think? Or whatever the scenario is, you know, whatever. But it's like, instead of getting super mad, just try to kind of look at it from the scenario of like, people are going to try to get as much out of you as they can sometimes. And they're going to purposely push and try to, you know, cross those lines because they're not okay with, you know, whatever scenario that you've set up. So if you have someone like that in your life that's constantly doing it, the best way that you can do is just try to remain calm. And it's not about like eating your feelings or eating, you know, the anger or rage that you might have. But, you know, you can still kind of digest what's going on and then, you know, calmly explain to them like, hey, this isn't, you know, this isn't what we talked about. Like, you're still doing, you know, this thing that I said that like upsets me and that, you know, is overstepping or whatever in whatever way. And I'd really appreciate it, you know, if you could remember that conversation we had. And if they get mad, if they get upset with you, again, that's on them. And we can't control how people react. We can only control how we react. Do you guys think my little oranges in there are cute? Ooh, that's strong. So this is a little side aspect of, you know, just completely relating it to boundaries. But it works in this scenario too. But one of the ways that you can look at handling, you know, these difficulties that come in our lives, because I think, you know, most of the time setting boundaries or asking things of people that we're not used to asking them is a really difficult thing for us to do, especially as we become adults and, you know, we're moving into new jobs and new roles as mothers and fathers and, you know, just the dynamics of our families change. So much changes, you know, in our, between like leaving home from high school and then kind of like, you know, moving into getting married or, you know, getting big jobs or moving new places and stuff. And so, you know, it's hard because you start to get your identity really starts to get rooted in all these other things. And sometimes our family or sometimes our friends or people that were kind of in our past life don't really understand like who we're becoming. So explaining that to them sometimes can be really hard. I had a big blow up with my family at my brother's graduation. Sorry, brother. It was after their graduation, but it was, you know, just a feeling of like when I go back home, I would kind of get pushed back into this kid mode. And it just got to the point where it was like, I'm in my late 20s and I'm still being treated like a kid, which, you know, to some extent, like your parents and, you know, they're still going to try to boss you around because they're your parents. But it's like there was just like a little level of respect that I didn't really feel like I was having. So instead of, you know, talking like grown up to the people that were upsetting me. I freaked out and yelled at everyone, which was, really great. And everyone was really upset. I hadn't read this book yet. But anyways, there's just, we're going, as we get older and as we get into different scenarios, one of those things is about explaining to people what you're okay and not okay with. And as, even you could have friends, and over the course of 3 years, people continue to push into your life a little bit the way that you wouldn't want them to. And so you have to have some awkward conversations sometimes. So thinking of these times, every time you do that, it's only going to make the next time easier. So when there's things that we have to do that are really hard and mentally and emotionally challenging, when we look inward and we're like, okay, I can do this, and the more you do it, it's like practice makes perfect, right? It's the more you do it, the more you have these conversations, the better you get at them. And, the less you start caring about how people, decide to handle them. If people are going to handle them badly, then obviously they need to do some inward self-reflections as well. But it's you can't control that, right? And, if it's a family member or a friend or a boss, hopefully you guys can work it out. But sometimes, you just got to deal with someone being mad at you. So this says, as time goes by and you build on the habit of matching the appropriate inner resource to each incident, you will not tend to get carried away by life's appearances. You will stop feeling overwhelmed so much of the time. So it's once you set one boundary with somebody, and again, it's more of setting it with yourself. Here I am going to stick to my guns on this and hold true to what this is. And, it doesn't mean that you can't be flexible, but it means that, these are my terms, and this is where I'm willing to work within those terms. But sometimes you are this is it. This is what it is. And I think the more that we practice that and we stand up for ourselves, I think the easier it gets as we go along. Yeah. So these next two kind of bleed into each other. I'm on page 20 and 21 now. So again, a lot of this is about not caring what other people think, right? Not having control over your own life and knowing what's within your control. So this next passage says, refrain from trying to win other people's approval and admiration. Keeping your will in harmony with truth and concerning yourself with what is beyond your control are mutually exclusive. While you are absorbed in one, you will neglect the other. So I'm going to read this again because it took me several reads to understand what this was. I was I know this is important, but I'm not understanding yet. So again, keeping your will in harmony with truth. That's one part. So keeping your will in harmony with your truth. You know who you are. You know what your purpose is. You know what you're heading towards, right? That's that. But then also trying to concern yourself with what is beyond your control. So being worried about what someone might think about you, or being, upset because your boss is still calling you after you've told them that, they can't call you after a certain time. They are mutually exclusive. So they do not mix, right? You can't be on your purpose and stand to what, and be what you stand for while also concerning yourself with somebody else. So if you make the decision that this is who I am, this is my will, this is my purpose, this is the boundary that I've set, and I'm going forward with it, whatever happens based from that other person's reaction is not any of concern to you. And if you try to worry yourself of it, then you're not actually staying true to what you've already said that you needed. So if you, with conviction, went to your boss and said, you cannot call me after 6 p.m. on weeknights, and you can't call me on the weekends because that's my time with my family, and your boss continues to try to call, and you're worried about it, and you're thinking to yourself, like, maybe I should answer the phone, maybe this or that. No. You have put yourself out there. You have said what you need. If your boss tries to come and do that, okay, that's your boss. And you can hear it, and you can talk to him about it the next day. And if he's upset about it, then maybe it's time to find a new job. Maybe, whatever, you figure out. Maybe your boss is like, no, I need you to be able to answer the phone. So maybe you decide you need more compensation then. There's ways to negotiate. And if none of that works, then I'm sorry. You have a shitty job, and you really should look for a new one, because that boss sounds horrible. But there's only so much in your control. You can't control what your boss does. So being concerned with that person and worrying takes everything away from the boundary that you set. So once you've decided, hey, this is how I feel, this is what I need, to be worried about anything outside of that is totally interfering with it. And you cannot do one. And you can't have your cake and eat it too in this scenario. It's either one or the other. You either be concerned with other people and miss out on harmony, miss out on serenity, be upset all the time, be in constant chaos because you're so worried about what everyone else is thinking of you and trying to appease everybody and live up to these appearances that they've created for you. Or you can say, hey, this is my life. This is what I want. This is what I need. And if you have a problem with it, then that is your problem. And I am not concerning myself with it. What sounds like a better idea to you? Being in constant chaos and worrying about everybody else and their problems and issues, or feeling great in your decisions and letting go of what you can't control and, living a pretty peaceful life? I'll let you guys decide. So then that goes into this next part, which is, it is within our control not to be disappointed by our desires if we deal with them according to facts rather than being swept away by them. Freedom isn't the right or ability to do whatever you please. Freedom comes from understanding the limits of our own power and the natural limits set in place by divine providence. So basically, freedom is acceptance of what we can control. So freedom is not being able to go out and kill somebody. Freedom isn't about, getting to speed on the highway and not, have consequences for it. Freedom is about what's in our control, right? We understand there's certain laws in nature. We understand that there's certain things put into place. You can't fly, right? Humans can't fly naturally, okay? We all pretty much accept this as something that is. So why would we try to jump off a cliff and fly if we know that we can't do that, So when you understand and accept these things that are out of our control and you accept what is within your control, then you can have true freedom. And again, that just continues to go back to boundaries, because so much of boundaries is actually setting them with ourselves and telling ourselves that, this is what you can control. This is your environment, okay? How are you going to handle this environment? What do you want out of all of this? All this other external stuff with all these other people and things, that's none of your concern. Just because birds can fly and you can't, you're going to be worried about birds flying, falling out of the sky? Probably not. We accept that birds can fly and we cannot. So why don't we accept other things with human beings? I need my time after work, and my boss can talk to me about it the next day. Why can't we understand that there are certain things in place, and for each person, all of these things are going to be different, and as we encounter them, it's, up to us to just handle ourselves. So if you're in this scenario where you're the boss and you're not understanding this boundary, to get upset with your employee because they've asked something of you, that's totally reasonable. Again, that's within yourself. Why would you continue to try to call somebody when they've already asked you to stop bothering them after they get off of work, once they've clocked out for the day? Why would you continue to push that when they've already set something in place. So it's all about our own selves taking responsibility and accepting the self-responsibility that we all have. And so I'm definitely going to get into that next week. This episode, when I was making it, really inspired me because I think we have so much of our culture here in America. We're just such privileged people, and I think that not a lot of people are thinking for themselves anymore, which is why I really wanted to bring this kind of take to my podcast, because I think it's really important that we kind of look out of ourselves and are able to see things in bigger pictures. And the more you look out, I feel like you kind of look inwards too. It's kind of like happening, at the same time, because the more responsibility we take for ourselves and the more everybody starts to do that, you're going to have a lot of harmonized people. You're going to have a lot of like calm people that are understanding of, different scenarios. And like, just because this isn't working out with this person in this moment, in this scenario, doesn't mean that I need to get upset and angry over it. So I'm going to get more into that next week. But, just to kind of wrap it up and sum it up with the boundaries, it's hard to get to a place where you know what you want. And I think sometimes, you're in a scenario where you don't have much time to think about it, or, maybe you're really confused on what's right, or maybe you haven't been in a position to actually think for yourself, and you're kind of finding this new freedom and new realm of being able to like make your own decisions. And it is really hard to know what you want and to stand by them. And again, I'll say I have a really hard time with boundaries. And speaking about it last week, it's like I really let a lot of people influence me and kind of not influence me in the way that I think necessarily, but like just pushing on me the things that they want to do and how they want to do it. And, even sometimes like my husband and I are trying to save money so that when we move to Japan, we have money. And it's like, just the simple things of like friends being like, oh, like come out, and it's like, even though it doesn't seem like a lot, but when you go out every weekend and you live off of one income, and it's two people drinking and eating, that adds up every weekend. And a couple $100 every weekend saves a lot over the course of a month, and saves a lot more over the course of a few months. So it's hard to say no, and you get peer pressure to do things and that you're not really wanting to do, just because you don't want to. And it's really because I don't want to hurt people's feelings. Like that's what it kind of comes down to. It's like, well, I don't want them to think that we don't like them, or whatever. But the reality of it is that I have to start saying no because, if we're not in a position to do it, then like we shouldn't be pushing our limits and, hurting ourselves in the big picture and in the long run, just so that we can go out and have a few drinks with people. But yeah, so it's really hard, and I'm trying a lot harder. And I think this episode was really great because it got me thinking about this in a whole other way, because I've been getting really angry with some people and just like frustrated because I feel like there's not a level of understanding and where I'm coming from. And so I'm realizing that that's not my problem. I've kind of set what I need to set, and if they can't accept that or if they don't understand it, then that's as far as I can go with it in this case. And so it's like, it's up to the other people to figure that out, but it's not my concern. If I'm upset that, they continue to try to push the boundaries on what I'm okay with them having like opinions or thoughts or ideas on, then, I just need to stop interacting for a little while and, or, explain to them like, hey, like, I don't want you to have an opinion about that, but it's like, getting upset over it is not solving any issues. It's not a good use of my energy. It's not a good use of my time. I don't know about you guys, but I'm one of those people that I think arguments over and over and over in my head. And then when it comes to actual scenario, I'm like, I totally chicken out. I don't ever say what it is that I want to say, which is probably good because some of the times the things I want to say are not nice. But, it's just, I'm trying to be better about, just not caring and just caring about what's going on with me and in my scenario. And I think the more that we focus on ourselves in these situations and the more freedom we give ourselves to understand that, that's not in our control. This is what my purpose is and this is what I'm going forward with. And, you can accept that or not. I think that it just is going to create such a better way to live, better harmony. And I think we'll be surprised too when you feel really sure of yourself. People see that. And and if people don't, then that's again their thing. But it's not for you to be concerned with. And I know like all this stuff is so easier said than done, right? Especially when they're people that are really close to us, and we've had certain relationships before, and we're kind of mixing things up. It's gonna take time, and there'll be time to adjust. And if these people are important in your life and you're important to them, then they'll figure out how to accept things. And you kind of just got to trust that it'll all work out, because I think when we love people and when we respect people and we want people in our lives, it is hard sometimes to come to the realization that they're their own person and we have to like let this go. But I think, when you see these people really happy and you see them progressing and doing great things, if you're a good person, it should make you happy too. So anyways, thank you so much guys for sitting and listening to another episode of The Bored Housewife. I really appreciate all the views and listens and the comments and likes, and I just continue to ask you to please share and comment and like, and send me some more ideas, especially along a more if you're having some philosophical issues and need like, how would Allison think of this or explain this. I would love to hear about it. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and cheers. I'll see you soon. Bye.